Hey guys, welcome to the video. It's Anna and I am back with another video. The first sit-down video in literally forever, so this feels really weird. I don't know the last time I did a sit-down video. My last sit-down video was my college decisions reaction video, which was 2 months ago. So as you saw from the title, I'm going to be reviewing all the books I've read so far this year. I made a goal this year to read at least one book a month, and I've mostly stuck to it, except like some of the books have overflowed into the next month. But right now it's the 7th month and I'm on my 7th book. I'm basically gonna like explain the plot a little bit. I'm gonna talk about what I thought about it. Yeah, I won't give any spoilers. Don't worry. And I'm also gonna give my rating out of 5 stars. I'm gonna go in order of each month. So in January, I read The Invisible Life of Addie, LaRue, which, as you may know, was like all over TikTok. Like I started reading this because my friend told me to read it, or no. My friend was I got it as a gift from my friend, but then like shortly after it was all over TikTok. So I was like, this book is gonna be really good. I was so excited to read it. So a quick little description of the plot. This girl who lives in the 1700s, she doesn't like the life that she is living, so she makes this deal with like a spirit thing. Some mistake ends up happening and she ends up becoming immortal, so she lives forever. And the book kind of jumps through time periods and it ends up being in 2014 that like the present day thing is happening. The catch though is that nobody remembers her, so when she like is talking to somebody and then she leaves the room or they leave the room, they don't remember her, so she keeps having to like reintroduce herself and she kind of lives the same day every day. But then she meets somebody and he remembers her, so then there's this whole thing of like, why does he remember her but nobody else? I also have my Goodreads app open because I make reviews of each book that I read, mainly because for myself in the future to like remember what I thought about the book. I actually did not really like this book. I rated it 3 out of 5 stars. It was definitely extremely overhyped. What I've been saying to everyone is it was a good read while I was reading it, but it wasn't a good book. And I'm not gonna give any spoilers again. Don't click off the video. Here's what I said. So from what I heard online about this book before reading it on TikTok and stuff, I thought I was gonna love it. And it was a great story, but for some reason I never really got into it and I felt no emotion at the end. Part of the reason I couldn't ever get into it was that every other chapter switched from like her past to the present. And I don't really like books that switch because what happens is, one, I was never really interested in her past. Obviously, like, I wanted to know the backstory, but I didn't really care about anything else. And when I would start to get into her, like, present time story, the next chapter would be her past, and then it would kind of, like, disrupt the flow of reading, you know? Like, I would kind of get really interested, and then I would turn the page and it would be, like, 17, 14, and I'd be like, well, I don't want to read it anymore. Also, a lot of the reviews, which I agree with, say that there's not really much of a plot, and the only key events that really happened were when she started the curse, when she found the person in the bookstore that remembered her, and then the big thing at the end, which I won't say what it was. I love plot twists, so like that's my favorite part of books, which later on we'll get into the plot twist book. And this book just didn't really have the main plot twist was big, but it could have kind of been predictable too, and it just didn't do it for me. It's definitely worth reading, but I just don't think it was great. In February, I read The Midnight Library, which is another one of those really popular books that was going around on social media. So in between life and death, there's this library thing, and this girl dies, and she finds herself in the Midnight Library, where there's a bunch of books, and each book is a different, like, possibility of how her life could have gone. It's basically about, like, regret and trying to figure out which way to live would have been the best way to live. I rated this book 4 stars, maybe like 3.5. It took me a really long time to get into. The summary sounded really good, like the description, so I was really excited to read it. But then when I started reading it, it kind of like wasn't how I thought it would be. The ending was crazy. So like I honestly didn't like the first 3/4 of the book, but the last 1/4 of the book I loved. I probably would have rated it a 2 out of 5 if the ending wasn't that good. So my book for March was 100 Days of Sunlight. Pretty short book. I started reading it because I follow the author on YouTube. I just wanted to see like what her book was like. This girl, she gets involved in a car accident and she loses her eyesight for 100 days. It's basically like they say that it's expected, I think, 8 weeks for it to return because it's like a temporary eye loss thing. So she can't like do her blog anymore because she can't see what she's writing. So her grandparents put out this thing into the news like asking for somebody to help her write her blog. But the news person's son sees the post before it's published, and so then he goes and tries to help. And it turns out that this boy doesn't have any legs. Like he's kind of lived his whole life like without legs, like prosthetic legs. But the girl doesn't know that because she's blind. So he gets to see how he's perceived like before people know that he has a disability. It was so good. It's a very light and easy read, and I'm a slow reader. Like my goal is to read 1 book a month. I literally read this book in a day. I literally sat down on the chair and read it from start to finish, basically. Like, if you're reading this, don't look for anything like amazingly deep or anything. It's just like a really good fun read. That was good. That was a good book. On the other hand, I read this book in March also because I read this one in 1 day. So this was technically my April book. This is How to Tell Toledo from the Night Sky. Oh yeah, I forgot what it was about until just now. So it's these 2 people and their mothers were friends from childhood, and the moms decided to raise their 2 kids together at the same time to try and make them like soulmates. And then eventually they're like in their 20s or 30s or something, and they meet each other, and then stuff happens. I don't specifically remember what happens though. I rated this book a 1. It was so bad. To be fair, I didn't like get this book from a recommendation. I went to the used bookstore and I liked the cover, and it had like a 4 out of 5 rating on Goodreads, or 3 out of 5 or something, so I read it, and the summary sounded good, so I was like, sounds good. But it was not good at all. 1 out of 5. Really bad. Oh, yeah, I didn't like the characters. They were kind of weird, and it was just weird. Like, why? Why? That's really all I have to say. Like, I don't really have anything to say about it. Okay, so the next book I read was American Dirt. I've had this one on my list for a while because my mom read it and some of my friends have read it, and they all really liked it. And the cover is this. Oh my gosh. This is the coolest thing I've ever seen. What the heck? So cool. I read this just in like, I actually just finished it in the middle of June. It's basically this lady who lives in Mexico and her son, who's I think 7 years old. And I'm not gonna go into the specifics because I feel like that would be a spoiler, but something happens where Lydia, who's the mom, and the son's name is Luca. Oh my gosh, best movie ever. So Lydia and Luca have to evacuate and escape, and they're trying to make it across the border of America to go live in America because there's just crazy stuff going on where they live, and it's like not safe for them to be there anymore. So the book basically follows their whole journey from where they live in Mexico to America, and all this crazy stuff happens. Definitely a 5 out of 5. Well, actually, I think I rated it a 4 out of 5 for a specific reason. Let me see what I wrote. Oh, I didn't write a review. This was like a pretty big book, and so much stuff happened. But also, I feel like more could have happened. Obviously, after the bad thing happened at the very beginning, everything kind of like went their way. Everything kind of worked out, so I didn't feel like it was very realistic. I remember like near the very end, I was like, why has like no one really died yet in their group that was like journeying to America? But then like in the end, a bunch of stuff happens that, you know, satisfied that. I don't want to say smooth because obviously a ton of bad stuff happened, but like it ended up working out a little bit too often. But that's just a tiny thing, like that does not define the whole book. The whole book was amazing and definitely really good. We are saving the best for last because I read this one in like a week or 2, so again, I read it really fast, and the ending was so good. The Guest List by Lucy Foley. I just finished this like 4 days ago, and dang, that was crazy. These 2 people are getting married on like a remote island in Ireland. It's like 150 wedding guests. in the island, and it's a murder mystery. So somebody dies, and actually, okay, so I kind of described it as a reverse murder mystery because this book actually jumps back in time a little bit. So it starts in like the present time, which is the night of the wedding when somebody dies, and then it jumps back to the day before the wedding or 2 days before the wedding up until the actual day of the wedding. There's a few chapters sprinkled in with like the details of them finding out that somebody just died. And to me, it was kind of like a reverse murder mystery because they find out that somebody dies at the very beginning of the book, but you don't find out who dies until the very end. The reader knows who the murderer is by the end of the book, but the characters do not. This book has 5 different points of view, and I usually don't like books where it switches between the point of view because it's just kind of annoying to me, but this book did it perfectly. On the back it says, they all have a secret, they all have a motive, but only one is their murderer. But the way that all of the 5 points of view are connected to the person who in the end is murdered is crazy. The one thing I thought I didn't like about this book was that it literally spent so long setting up all the backstories of everyone, but in the end I actually appreciated that because I understand why the author did that, because like everything just unfolds at the end. Like I think I was 2/3 in and I was like, literally nothing has really happened yet, we just know all the backstories, and then something happened, and then something else 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 happened, and it was crazy. I remember the first plot twist, I read it and I was like, and then I kept reading and then I realized what it said and I like did a double take and then I went back and I was like, what the heck? You have to read it. And read all the other ones too, except for How to Tell Toledo from the Night Sky, unless you want to know why it's so weird. So yeah, anyways, I hope you liked this video. I'm currently reading On All Fronts by Clarissa Ward, and over the summer I'm gonna try and read more than 1 book a month just because I have more time and I have a lot of books I want to read. But anyways, thank you guys for watching this video. Let me know if you've read any of the books and like what you think about them. I'll see you guys next week with a brand new video.